In this post-Obama world of George Floyd and riots and looting, we need to ask ourselves a critical question. Was Martin Luther King wrong? Ben & Jerry's says we need to dismantle white supremacy. Plus, Twitter now says it wants to focus on explaining context rather than actual fact-checking. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Friday. I hope you've had a great week. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to start with Ben & Jerry's because the ultra woke ice cream maker is at it again. They put this long manifesto together under this title of Dismantling White Supremacy, and they started off with this tweet. The murder of George Floyd was the result of inhumane police brutality that is perpetuated by a culture of white supremacy. So, this whole thing that they get into is so lame and misguided. I'm going to get into the points, but what really frustrates me is they put it under this title of, or heading of, dismantling white supremacy as an effort to pretend to unite everybody. Because after all, who supports white supremacy? We're all opposed to that. So if you blast them on Twitter, which a lot of people did, people come back and say, oh, what? You support white supremacy? It's so lame. It's so fake. It's just a bogus little ploy to hide the story in an effort to fake unite people. It's just lame. But CNN covered it, and here's their report. In a forceful statement posted to the company's website, Ben & Jerry's describes the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man, at the hands of a white police officer as a result of inhumane police brutality that is perpetuated by a culture of white supremacy. What happened to George Floyd was not the result of a bad apple. It was the predictable consequence of a racist and prejudiced system and culture that has treated black bodies as the enemy from the beginning, said the brand. Actually, this has everything to do with a bad apple. And to indict the whole system means that you have no comprehension or desire to follow the facts, the stats, the data, because they do not support a systemic problem at all. This has everything to do with a bad apple, and here's more from CNN. The statement from Ben & Jerry's is unusually comprehensive and direct, addressing the historical roots of discrimination in the United States and calling out systemic racism, while advocating specific policies to prevent further police abuses and redress racial inequality. So what are the points in this Ben & Jerry's manifesto? Well, they start off with talking about the need to reconcile and to heal, but then they add this. Instead of calling for the use of aggressive tactics on protesters, the president must take the first step by disavowing white supremacists and nationalist groups that overtly support him, and by not using his Twitter feed to promote and normalize their ideas and agendas. Okay, not productive. First of all, just like the rest of the left, they try and lump everything that's going on under this phrase, this word of protesters. They ignore the rioting and looting and vandalism, assault and killing. People have died since George Floyd. People have been seriously injured. Businesses have been burned down. These are rioting, looting, lawlessness. We can't have it, period. Next. We call upon the Congress to pass H.R. 40, legislation that would create a commission to study the effects of slavery and discrimination from 1619 to the present and recommend appropriate remedies. In other words, reparations. That's what they're talking about here. Yet, we have to look at the facts, folks. People can succeed in this country if they work. In fact, it is well known that if you are a minority or a woman, you have a better chance of getting hired. You have an easier chance of getting hired, a better chance if you're a minority to get into colleges. These policies have been ingrained now in our admissions and our hiring practices. That's just a fact. Next. We support Floyd's family's call to create a national task force that would draft bipartisan legislation aimed at ending racial violence and increasing police accountability. We can't continue to fund a criminal justice system that perpetuates mass incarceration while at the same time threatens the lives of a whole segment of the population. This is unreal. Are you kidding me? Legislation to end racial violence? You can't legislate that away. There are certain bad apples out there, certain people that are racist. And I'll give you my personal take on that in just a second, but we can't legislate it away. Everything that Ben and Jerry says from this, again, this ultra woke company is just so misguided. It doesn't address the actual problems. It ignores all the data, all the facts that what happened when you have police officers killing an unarmed black man. When that happens, it is exceedingly rare. In 2019, it happened 10 times. It happened 20 times to whites, 10 times to blacks. 6 of those eyewitness accounts said the police officer was justified, not the cop's testimony, others. So that leaves 4 cases. 2 of those were prosecuted. 2 of those, they saw circumstances to side with the cops. That's how many occurred in 2019. That's it. So to say that this is a widespread systemic problem ignores the data. It's just wrong. Ben and Jerry's is wrong here. Let me know what you think in the comments. So next, I want to give you my take on all this because it's been brewing for a while now. And this is something that I have talked about and written about for a long time. Back in probably 2005, I wrote a column called A Personal Look at Racial Preferences. It was published by Human Events magazine. It was widely circulated. And like I said, that was 15 years ago. So this is something that has been on my mind for a long time, and I've talked and I've written about it. I also like to listen, folks. I like to listen to the other side. That's how I form my opinions, to tell you what I think. And so I went on YouTube and I listened to folks. I listened to a lot of folks. There is a black YouTuber named Marques Brownlee. He's got over 11 million subscribers. He's a tech YouTuber, really awesome. He gave his take on it. I also went over to my friend's website, Kels Acosta. You guys need to check him out. He is awesome. He has a travel channel. He's traveled the world, and he also travels around New York City and gives his take on the places to go, the people to see, the things to do in a very positive way, a very positive message. You can check it out right there. Please visit his channel. He's an awesome guy. I listen to him. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. The thing is I listen to those things, and then I want to give you my take, because my background is I'm half white, half Hispanic. Eberle on my dad's side, Perez on my mom's side. And because of that DNA, I tan very easily. So you can imagine in middle school and high school, playing outside, playing tennis, I'd get dark. We used to joke that I get too dark. And what that led to is occasions where I'd run into folks and they'd have racist comments. I'd hear it over and over again, almost universally from stupid, idiot white people. But they would have all the Hispanic slurs, all the Mexican slurs. I'd hear it, but it really didn't bother me. It's just like it's sticks and stones type of thing. The problem, what really bugged me, and it's really hard to explain, was this look or this tone or this kind of attitude that you feel that says, I'm superior than you. I mean, these people were idiots, and they're telling me that they're superior, and I'm just looking at them. You really think that you're superior? And it just kind of drove me to that I'll show you someday attitude. But the one thing that I know was that it was never systemic anywhere. It was individuals. The one that stood out the most, the one that caused me to write that paper back 15 years ago, was standing with my grandmother, Isabel Perez. She worked for this wealthy ranching family, and the lady was there, and my grandmother was telling her how proud she was that her grandson, who wants to be an astronaut, is going to Texas A&M to study aerospace engineering. And her reply was, oh, he only got in because he was Mexican. Now, I just told you that those other things never bothered me. That one stung. That one hurt, because she had no idea that on every application, I always checked the white box, because I never wanted to have anything for nothing, to be given anything. She didn't care. She didn't know that. She just assumed that it was some kind of racial preference thing. And I never forgot it. That's why I wrote about it. So I know, my point is that racism is real. I know it's real. I know it exists. But in order to solve the problem, we need to address the real issues and talk about it. And I had a great discussion with my daughter yesterday that just, it formed me to have this segment today to talk to you, because I told her that when I was growing up, I thought that things were looking good. Race relations were looking good. Our generation was the ones that was going to get past all that. And she said that she felt the same way with her generation, and that probably each generation thinks that it's going to be the one to break through this racial divide and everything. Well, I've been around long enough to see that it's gotten worse. But then because of that discussion, I had this aha moment, and that has to do with Martin Luther King, because he was assassinated 1 month after I was born. So the same year I was born, Martin Luther King was shot and killed. So what that means, though, is that in elementary school, in junior high, his memory, his voice, his speeches, his ideas were fresh on people's minds. It's like being 1 year after, or 5 years after, or even 10 years after 9/11. It's fresh. Those memories are fresh. So his legacy is what my generation was taught on race relations. His ideas of, we're all in this together, America. We are Americans first. We judge people by merit and not skin color, colorblind society, and things like this.
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
So that was Martin Luther King. That legacy was ingrained in the way we were taught about race. So let's look at things today. Look at things today. Things should have gotten better, right? Well, now the whole tools are changed. We might have a generation that says we are going to be the ones to end this racial divide. But look at what's being said and look at the tools that are being used. We've gone from colorblind society, we're all Americans first, judge people on merit, to safe spaces, reparations, white privilege, and things like that. It's absolutely outrageous that all of the things that we're taught about that unite us, now the same people that say we want to talk about race and end it, use things that divide us. White privilege, safe spaces, keeping people separate, and this whole idea that we can't discuss things unless you've actually lived it. That's the new thing from the left. They say unless you've lived it, you can't talk about it. And we see this in the abortion debate. Unless you're a woman, you can't talk about abortion. And we know that's bogus because there are plenty of pro-life women out there that the left totally ignores. They don't want to hear about them. They don't care what their opinion is. It's just a talking point. And now we see this here too. Barack Obama sits down, other people sit down, say we need to have a discussion about race. And yet those are the same people that say, unless you're black, you can't talk about it. Well, guess what? You can't have a dialogue unless both sides are talking. You can't have a discussion if you won't hear what the other side is saying. You can't have it. You have to have both people talking, both people exchanging ideas. And that is the whole thing. That is the key. If we really want to solve this problem, we need to sit down and talk, but we cannot have people involved that really do not want to solve the problem. And that is the whole motivation from the left, because they hijacked what Martin Luther King said and they twisted it because they realized if we truly have a colorblind society, if we truly think and act like Americans, then they lose power. And without power, they don't have control. They cannot advance their agenda. So we cannot listen to people that do not want to solve the problem. We can do it. We can solve it. We have to listen, and we have to put people together that truly want to solve it. And that is not the far left. Their agenda is to divide. They do not want to listen. They say you can't talk. How are we supposed to solve a problem if one side can't even talk? All right, so folks, next I want to talk to you about Twitter. But first I got to share some good news. I mean, either today or this weekend, we are going to pass, I want to talk about subscribers, because we are hitting 70,000 subscribers. And that is all because of you. I want to give you a big thanks. And while you're here then, please subscribe if you haven't done it. Please hit that bell so you'll be notified so we can make our push to 100K by Election Day. We can do it thanks to your help. So next, I want to talk about Twitter because they have taken so much heat from for going after President Trump, labeling some of his tweets as misleading, labeling some of his tweets as promoting violence. Yet they don't do it to the other side. It's just absolutely outrageous to see what is going on. And here's the report. We are not attempting to address all misinformation, Twitter says in one of the messages posted under its Twitter safety banner. Instead, we prioritize based on the highest potential for harm, focusing on manipulated media, civic integrity, and COVID-19. Likelihood, severity, and type of potential harm, along with reach and scale, factor into this. It's absolutely outrageous, folks. They do one thing on the conservative side, they do one thing somewhere else. This whole idea of tear gassing the protesters to clear Lafayette Park when President Trump and his team walked over to the church, that has been dispelled. There was no tear gas used. The U.S. Park Service says no tear gas was used. Yet you see, and I checked this morning, you see tweets from Chuck Schumer. You see tweets from Hillary Clinton. You see one from Joe Biden, all making the same claim, and none of them were flagged. None of them at all. That's what's going on at Twitter. So I mentioned Joe Biden. I got to leave you with this, folks, because he's at it again. The more he speaks, it just is ammunition for all of us. And this last time, yesterday, he gave us a classic Hillary Clinton quote from, like she said, back in 2016, lumping a bunch of Americans as deplorables.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
All right, so that's Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden was in a virtual town hall yesterday talking about race, talking about issues like that. And in classic leftist fashion, he starts off like this.
And the words the president says matter. So when a president stands up and divides people all the time, you're going to get the worst of us to come out.
So, classic. He starts off by dividing people, by saying the other side wants to divide you. And then, literally a few seconds later, he says this.
There are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there that are just not very good people.
10 to 15% of Americans are not very good people. They're bad people. 10 to 15%. That's around 33 to 50 million people. 50 million people are bad guys. He doesn't say how, he doesn't say who they are, but 50 million people. He just talked about not dividing, uniting people. He just chopped out 50 million people from society because they're somehow bad. And he doesn't even explain it. What does that mean? I hope someone today in the media asked him who these 50 million people are, what they've done, how are they bad, or is it just the fact, like he mentioned the other day, saying that if you're black and support Trump, that you ain't black? Is that it? If you're a Trump supporter, you're bad? It makes no sense, folks. But in his effort to unite, he just divided. And that's Joe Biden. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. And we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is the 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-Minute News Hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.